Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Don Lemon Show. Former Washington Governor Jay Inslee has long been one of the country's most outspoken leaders on climate change, calling it the defining challenge of our lifetime. During his tenure, he helped make Washington a national model for clean energy investment and green jobs. But now, as the Trump administration moves to slash funding for renewable energy projects and punish blue states that have embraced them, the stakes could not be higher. And Governor Inslee joins us now to talk about the government shutdown, the dangerous rollback of climate progress, and how these cuts threaten not just the environment, but America's economic future. There's a lot to discuss. Governor, welcome. How are you?
Well, I'm cheery even after that introduction. We've obviously got some work to do to maintain our economy, cheap electricity, and jobs. So we got some work to do here.
Can we start with what's on the just on the hot burner right now? Because it's all related. When you are looking at what is happening to the east wing of the White House, what do you think?
It's very rendering emotionally to me, in part because, I've been there quite a number of times. I was in Congress for 15, 16 years, and as governor, I was there. And it's a symbol of American democracy. And so it's emotionally very cleaving to myself and my wife. We were just talking about that this morning because it represents the fact that, until just the last election cycle, we've always had presidents that fundamentally believed in democracy. And the metaphor of this as a threat to democracy itself is what is so glaring to people and so hurtful to them that the building can be rebuilt, it can be rebuilt and redone, but what's really at risk is democracy itself. The gerrymandering that the Republicans are doing, the threats to voting by mail, which has been so successful by the president, and his coup attempt. Let us not forget, he just didn't tear down the White House; he tear down the whole Capitol on January 6th. So this is a symbol that has resonance, unfortunately. Now, the question is, what do we do about it? Well, what we do is we go to work. The No Kings, all the 7 million people are out there on No Kings Day. The people are getting ready for the governor's races to elect 2 Democrats as governor of New Jersey and Virginia. We just got to get out there and work. And if it can serve to energize us, then it'll be a good thing.
People feel like they have no recourse, no matter how hard they try or protest or whatever. And look, that's probably the strategy from the Trump administration. That there's just so much going on.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, I'm just going to say, look, this is the strategy, the playbook of autocrats around the world.
Yeah.
To first make you feel helpless, to make you feel like you have no agency, and therefore you just got to crawl into a fetal position and give up. Mm-hmm. You can't give them the win on that strategy. We have to use this as fuel for action rather than a suppression for inaction. Now, that is happening. I'm seeing bold actions by governors to stand up against this abuse, by citizens, by attorney generals that are suing him and winning frequently in court. So I would encourage people, at the moment you decide to get a little down in the dumps, get on the balls of your feet, get out there and do something, find a candidate, go help a governor who's running or a member of your legislature this year, and go to toe-to-toe, because we have agencies in this regard. We saw it, look, during the McCarthy era, when Joe McCarthy was running rampant, tearing down democracy, people finally stood up. Joe Welch finally said, "At last, sir, have you no honor? Have you no decency?"
Have you no shame?
Well, those voices are going to be heard. We got to make sure we keep voicing them.
So let's talk more, because, as I said, all of this is connected, right? It's part of the tearing down. You said the metaphor of the White House, that he's tearing down democracy, he's tearing down America. And then we have all of this is happening while the government is shut down, Governor. How is this impacting one of your biggest initiatives, which is clean energy, workers and projects across the country right now?
Well, you can't overstate the damage he's doing to Americans on very kitchen table issues. Look, this guy came in saying he was going to tame electrical prices, but in fact, he's driving them up. Inflation is going to go up because what he has done is to take away the cheapest sources of energy which is clean energy right now. Solar, wind, advanced batteries. These are the cheapest sources of energy in 93% of the areas in the United States. And he is doing it because he is in a corrupt scheme to help the people who gave him $1 billion. Look, the fossil fuel industry, the coal guys came in and gave him $1 billion. Now they're getting what they want, which is a suppression of their competitors, which is the cheaper source of energy. So right now, electrical prices, if I can use maybe another crude metaphor, are the new egg prices, because electrical prices have gone up by average by 10%, which is hundreds of dollars to a family across America, because he is willfully, and I note this, look, you can make mistakes, but this is a willful action by him of corruption to drive up prices to help his fossil fuel buddies. And I think we should be angry about this. Now, it also is costing jobs. An analysis has just been done by Climate Power. It shows we've already lost 338,000 good paying real jobs. These are jobs in building manufacturing plants for batteries, putting up wind towers, building and wiring solar panels. By the way, these are not jobs for rocket scientists. These are jobs for blue collar folks who are installing and building these manufacturing bases. And he's sending these jobs. Guess what they're going? They're going to China. Look, I talked to a company in clean energy last night. They have an advanced clean energy product. It can increase the range of your automobile by about 20%. As a result of his tariffs, they've had to open up some production in Korea. So he's driving jobs out of this country over to China, which is just insane. But the thing that is most angering to me is driving up people's electrical bills.
Well, you know who's talking about that. I think an unsuspecting ally, that someone who's going to agree with you, and maybe you'll be shocked, is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Listen to this.
Food prices are high, rent is high, home prices are ridiculously high, cars are high, auto insurance, home insurance, health insurance is insane. Energy prices are high. I can tell you that in my own electric bills, they're much more expensive than they were even a year ago.
I mean, she's saying what you're saying, and let me just get to, you comment on that, and I'm going to get to the actual number for jobs. But go on. I mean, even Marjorie Taylor Greene is agreeing with you, Governor.
It's hard to disagree because facts are facts. And the thing that's galling is he rode this horse of inflation into the White House, and now he's increasing it. Yeah. And again, I want to repeat, he's causing people to suffer hundreds of dollars of increased electrical costs by cratering out clean energy. But the reason he's doing it is particularly galling is because he is in bed with the coal industry, and he's paying them off for their campaign contribution. It's a corrupt scheme by him. That's what's so maddening about this. Now, unfortunately, it's tied to the other places he's driving up our costs, including healthcare costs.
But let's hang on healthcare. Let's hang on healthcare, because I want to give some of the numbers that you've talked about, because we're seeing reports that you talked about just the, sort of just a peripheral view or an overview of it, but more than 338,000 clean energy jobs could be on the chopping block due to these cuts. I mean,
not could be, have been. He has already given pink slips to 338,000 people who will not have these jobs already that have been identified. But the tail of this destruction is multi-decadal, because he's stopping Americans from doing what they do so well, which is to building new technologies that are cheaper and sending them overseas to help his buddies. So that's what's going on.
What kind of message does that send to the states about renewable energy and such?
Well, fortunately, we're having great success if we can keep his hands off our programs. You look at my state, which has grown dramatically, and the 24 states in the U.S. Climate Alliance, which are all growing clean energy jobs to the extent that he can't get his hands on them, that have been actually confirmed by the voters, too. We had a great success in Washington. We have a thing called the Climate Commitment Act, which is creating thousands of jobs, building clean energy jobs. He has not been able to stop us from doing that. That's a really important point. That's why these governors' races are important, New Jersey and Virginia and other places, because states can continue to do these things with our own initiatives. So we have created a cap and invest system, which creates a pool of funds to help Washingtonians get access to heat pumps and solar panels and insulation and put people to work. He cannot get his grubby hands on that because of a state protocol. And that's why these statewide elections are so important, because states have our own destiny to be in control of, and we can continue to move forward. So I'm excited to tell you at least half of the states in the United States are doing that. We have 24 states, the U.S. Climate Alliance. And those states, by the way, it's interesting, the economic performance of those states are all above average. These are the states who understand the future, which is clean energy, which is cheaper energy. So they're getting their citizens less expensive electricity. At the same time, we're keeping pollution out of our kids' lungs. That's a twofer.
You mentioned healthcare, and I cut you off. What were you going to say? You said you said, okay, now that we're done with energy, this is what he's doing. This is what's happening with healthcare.
Well, I guess what the point I want to make is it's not just one error. We're all human, right? We can all make mistakes. He's assaulting the pocketbooks of Americans in multiple dimensions, including healthcare, because by deciding to eliminate the support for insurance, something like 20 million people are going to have sometimes doubling of their healthcare premiums. And many of those people are going to lose their healthcare coverage because of it. So this is like multiple places he is exposing Americans to higher costs. And it's those kind of things that we got to focus on. We get involved in too many ideological fights. Let's look at the fight that happens at the kitchen table when people are trying to pay their rent, trying to pay their mortgage, trying to get their kid through college. Those are the things that no American president should shove higher prices down Americans' throats. And that's what he's doing. Again, because these are political payoffs. These are not just bad mistakes. These are not just bad, inappropriate assessments by some policy geek. This is corruption. And you're seeing it in so many different ways in this White House, where he is fattening his wallet, taking money from overseas, getting free airplanes from people that he's turning around and doing business with. This makes Teapot Dome. This makes Nixon look like a Boy Scout leader. And people ought to be outraged about it. And that's why they're out on the street last weekend about this.
You were saying, you were mentioning what this was akin to. I mean, you said before that Trump uses politics as punishment. Do you see these energy cuts and other cuts as part of that? I mean, going after blue states that invested in renewables and people who want affordable health care and such for their constituents, which, I mean, who doesn't want affordable health care? That's what I don't get.
Well, it's interesting. Usually when somebody's robbed a bank and they're caught, they deny it. They say, well, I didn't rob the bank. That was somebody else. You get a mistaken identity. In Trump's case, he comes right out and pleads guilty to all of these offenses. Of course he has punished blue states. Of course, he has said as much. This is a vengeance tour of retribution. And the blue states, about 95% of the cancellation of these projects were in blue states. Now, he probably had a few mistakes because he's canceling a couple in red states as well, but the vast majority have been in blue states. And I take a little umbrage to that. Not only is it unjust, but my citizens are paying taxes. They deserve to get something back for it. So paying taxes to this guy and then have him deny the benefits of that is pretty outrageous. And when I see the jobs in my state that have been lost because of this, in the battery industry, in the EV industry, in the solar industry, in the wind industry, that he's tried to cancel every permit he can in the solar and wind business. And these are good paying jobs. These are people, I remember one time I was up at a wind turbine farm. I was examining it, and this white pickup came down the road, and I started talking to this guy. He'd been working on one of these wind turbines, and somehow we mentioned climate change or something. He says, what climate change in wind and clean energy means to me? He says, it means this pickup, and he slaps his hand on the pickup. I got a brand new pickup because of clean energy. That's why I'm in favor of it, because he had his great jobs, best job he ever had, maintaining these wind turbines. And that's what it means it's been lost, because frankly, He doesn't care. He cares about taking care of the rich guys who paid for his campaign. That's who he's thinking about. He's not thinking about you or your family or your family's kids. And that's why this is such an outrage.
So let me ask you this, because you're kind of given the advice and you're still working on these things. Don't think that I think that, you're not doing anything. But
Right.
if you were still governor today and you were facing a shutdown and Trump's cuts and, all of these cuts to renewables and the damage he's doing to healthcare industry and so on, what would you do to protect your workers and the citizens of your state and keep those projects alive?
Well, the first thing I would do is to insist pretty simply that the president follow the law and the U.S. Constitution. And he has not, because he is using the law to punish his political adversaries. He has an obligation to all Americans of whatever party, but he's punishing just a little bit less than half of them, or maybe actually more than half of them at this point. So I would work with our tremendous Attorney General Nick Brown, who was my former counsel when I was governor, to be in court, on Tuesday morning for something he does Monday afternoon, to enforce the law and the U.S. Constitution. And I'm convinced that he has violated the law in so many different ways, because we've already had these budgets where this money has been appropriated through lawful channels. The Congress has passed the law, the president has signed it in a law, and he does not have the right to control the entire United States budget. Look, the course we are on, we got to understand how severe this is. The course we are on is that Congress will simply raise the taxes, and then Donald Trump will decide how to spend them without any authorization from the U.S. Congress. That's the belief that he is asserting. That is such a disruption and tearing up the United States Constitution. And Congress is letting him do it because the Republicans are lapdogs and in a cult in refusing to stand up to him. Let me give you an example about this that makes me madder than hell. So in a place I used to live over in central Washington, and we had a tremendous job-creating entity called the Hydrogen Hub. It was $1 billion to build $1 billion of jobs using hydrogen to power trucks and perhaps ships and even industry to some degree. Fantastic opportunity. And he came around and canceled it. So what did our Republican congressmen do about that? We have 2 Republican congressmen in Washington. What did they do about that? They wrote a letter to the president and said, "Dear Mr. President, please let us have these jobs." But did they do anything about it? Did they refuse to vote for the budget? Did they tell him, "I'm not voting with you, Mr. President, until you fix this problem"? No. They did essentially nothing except doing sort of a cover your tail letter saying, "Gee, it's too bad you killed so many jobs in my district." It's this type of slavish devotion to this president that is souring people across the country on the president and on the Republican Party. We need Republicans who will stand up and be counted on this, to call him to account when he kills these jobs. And he's killed them in my state, and our Republicans, who have an obligation to everybody in their district, have done nothing about it. Mm-hmm. That's why we need some new people in the U.S. Congress. That's why I'm encouraging people to go find a candidate in the U.S. Congress for next November's election, to get somebody that will stand up for the people rather than your Donald, who is your master. That's what this country needs right now. You heard Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I certainly have not agreed with her on many things, but it's interesting that she's like one of the only people in the whole U.S. Republican caucus that will do anything about this. We need people to stand up for their people. We don't have that right now.
Former Washington Governor Jay Inslee, I always love having you on the program. It's so good to see you. Thank you for coming on and making our viewers smarter.
Well, I tell you, I hope that people in New Jersey and Virginia will look out for our great candidates there. Spanberger is doing great work. I'm just really, really happy about Mikey and Abigail on this. They're the answer to what we need. And don't forget, governors can do a lot that the president can't stop us.
Yeah.
So good luck.
And just because you're not in elected office anymore doesn't mean that you can't do the work and make a difference like you're doing. Thank you so much.
Yep, I'm doing everything I can because I believe it. I believe voices count on this. I believe history is yet to be written,
Yeah.
and we're not doomed. We can still win these fights over time. It just takes a little perseverance.
Thanks, Governor. Your mouth to God's
Thank you.
ears.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will see you next time.